memes, and markets. One of the things that's been brought up a ton is like the circular investing piece of how all of these companies are kind of like, you know, pushing money around in a circle. How do you look at the way that this stuff is interacting with financial markets and the impact that it could have, or it technically is already having, on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ?
Yeah, I'm not a huge expert in those spaces. Not to say I won't say some of my thoughts, but just like take them all with the huge helpings of salt here, right? My it, it sure seems like a bubble to me from everything that I know. But a lot of economics seems like a bubble, right? One of uh, the YouTube channels I enjoy, the Cody on Some More News, like whenever he mentions money, he's like, and that's all made up and fake, by the way. Right. So it's like, yeah, all right, it's economic stuff. But like when I'm looking at if I were investing in companies or feeling how like healthy the market is and that those sorts of things, I mean, like, are we generating like really useful stuff, a real value? And uh, there's some like really useful things that AI can do. The improved like power and capacity for chips is like undeniably really powerful. Like that stuff is really cool. So I don't think it's totally empty calories, right? uh, my worry is more that it gets uh, it's definitely been overhyped to some degree, because I think the artificial people are pricing in like we're going to have artificial super intelligence in the next decade, and I think that's ludicrous. So I'd be very worried about that. Um, and then I would be very worried with how um, uh, CEOs are going to handle the failure to achieve that. Like, are they going to be able to pivot to like, you know what, there actually are like crazy valuable things that we can do with artificial intelligence, right? Or are they going to say, no, we just have to keep trying to hit home runs and hit artificial super intelligence until everything crashes and burns? And that I'm less worried about. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in those CEOs to make those decisions, and I'm more hoping that we have the right sort of social institutions keeping people from ripping people off and lying to them, and maybe that can keep some stuff in check. So anyway, I'm not. My usual take is somewhere in between, right? Like I don't think it's the Great Depression, but I don't. I don't think everything's going to the moon, and I'm a little closer to the depression side than I am to the moon side, and hoping we recover.
Yeah, like I bring it up because I do feel like it does feed into the conversation without, there's not a lot of nuance being had around the discussion of, can this technology do incredibly amazing things, but could there also be a financial bubble, right? That ends up slowing that down to some degree, right? If the whole financial piece of it blows up, then some of these companies will go away, and then there won't be as much money being spent on this, and then we all have to pivot to something else. So yeah, I was just curious to hear some of the thoughts and how you're thinking about that and how it could have either adverse effects on how things are building out now. I mean, there's also the whole real estate aspect to it, where there's these data centers that are being built and all of this. Um, uh, Insane levels of capex, capital expenditures, where these companies are spending on things that don't necessarily directly lead to revenues, but rather the expectations of improving something within a business and that leading to extra revenues down the line. Um, so yeah, I was just curious to see if you had any other interesting thoughts on that part of it all.
I mean, I don't know how interesting the thoughts would be. I guess I would be thinking, if I were like planning a startup or something like that, or saying like, what's the next move? Like, okay, these we are going to underperform on expectations here. There's going to be, if we don't actually need as many of these chips, or we don't actually need as many of these data centers as we thought, because they're not going to be able to deliver on the promises that they have, who is going to be able to capitalize on that inefficiency, right? Like, all right, they're going to be more access to some chips and data centers than we previously thought. Or also, what are the things that people think we're being promised by artificial superintelligence that aren't going to be there? Like, what are those functions, and how can we deliver that in meaningful ways? And it's sort of like to take us full circle back to some Psychor stuff, right? That was part of the thought there was that, all right, machine learning isn't going to be able to deliver because it's not going to know how to explain its reasoning. So we're missing explainability. So how can I like build a platform that's going to do that? Right. Okay. Artificial superintelligence, like the thought was that okay, it's just going to be able to do everything and make all the choices for us. But what we found out is that it's really good at doing specific targeted tasks, but it's missing like a product manager role that does the executive function of, saying, here's how I want you to sequence together these tasks. Here's how I want you to prioritize them, and letting the AI do those more domain specific things. So maybe there's just more, economic space for philosophers or for people who can delineate tasks clearly enough and help provide the orchestration layer that these things are going to be missing and fill in um, uh, uh, to help satisfy those needs. But yeah, I don't know whether that rises to the level of interesting. But.
Certainly.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That means you're probably enjoying this. And if so, just know that you can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to see the full version of this episode, you can click the link in the description down below. Otherwise, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this next.